Right, Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Racha, Kodesh. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And yeah, as you can see in the title, let's lock it. GMS Biblical History Chronicles, Kings of Persia and the Realm of Grecia. And yeah, earlier today I was watching this live stream that was done by the elder apostle Oriam Lab, um, in response to an individual uh, by the name or the YouTube handler Birmingham Brews, and he was going into Daniel the 11th chapter, and I linked the video that the apostle did in the description box, so you can get access to it there, and you can be edified. Okay, but he pretty much went into it dealing with Daniel 11, and I believe it was either the first or second verse or so. Let's take a look. um Dealing with the four kings. Okay, yeah, second verse, which the book of Daniel, along with the book of Second Esdras 11, these are all really historical. They took place, they've been fulfilled. Especially the book of Daniel, in a nutshell, is dealing with the six Syrian wars. But the thing about it is that you have to do a lot of studying because the history in it is very, very vast, and it can get very detailed at times, going into specific names of people, places, nations, events, all of this stuff. But yeah, like I said, the elder basically covered it. I just wanted to go into a bit of the history on dealing with the Ionian Revolt, okay, which leads up to some of the events that we read about here in Daniel 11 and 2. Okay, so first let's read Daniel chapter 11, verse 1. It says, "Also I, in the first year of Darius the Mede, even I stood to confirm and to strengthen him, and now will I shew thee the truth. Behold, there shall stand up yet three kings in Persia," which at the time that this was taking place, there was already a king of Persia, which was Cyrus. So when it says there shall stand up, meaning that these are going to be ones that would come after. All right, yet three kings in Persia, which was Cambyses the second, son of Cyrus, and then I believe it was his brother Bardia, or Smerdis, and then followed by Darius the first, the Great they call him, okay, who was a Persian. So there's a difference there, right? You had Darius the Mede, and you also had Darius the Persian, not to be confused with each other. Um, but then it says, "And the fourth shall be far richer than they all," okay, which is dealing with Xerxes the first, as he is known in secular history, and in the scriptures, in the book of Esther, he's referred to as a Hasuerus. But as it says, "And by his strength, through all his riches, he shall stir up all against the realm of Grecia," which basically the individual was saying that this was the Persians going against Jake, which were, because he was using the word Grecia and then going to the New Testament, and then the Grecians there referring to Jake. So, basically breaking it down as though the Persians were fighting against Jake, which, like the elder went into beautifully, you had Israelites that were in the region, the Spartans and so on and so forth. But when it says that he stirred up all against the realm of Grecia, it wasn't just Jake's. All right, it was mainly, when it says Grecia, it was talking about the predominant people there at the time. Okay, which you could have had Japhites, okay, Edomites, and Israelites in there. All right. But now, like I said, the elder already covered that, so that's not what I'm going to deal with in this lesson. What I wanted to go into is why it was that Xerxes stirred up all against the realm of Grecia. Okay, because when you read in the secular history, there are a series of events that led up to this part right here, which is known as the Second Persian Invasion of Greece. So, let's start off here with the Ionian Revolt. Now, when you go back in time to the time when the Persians came into power, you had the Medo-Persian Empire, which at first it was ruled by the Medes. They were the ruling class, and then the Persians were pretty much under them. And then when the Lord put the spirit on Cyrus to come up into power, he then took down the Medes and subjected them under the Persians. So the Persians became like the ruling class there, which is where you get the Achaemenid Empire from. But as the empire grew, the Persian Empire grew, and they were conquering the different lands. In Daniel the seventh chapter and Daniel the eighth chapter, it talks about in Daniel 7 is referred to as the bear with three ribs in his mouth, and in Daniel 8 is referred to as the ram with two horns. Okay, but as it grew, it conquered different lands, and you have this Ionian revolt, which was basically a revolt from part of the region that was under Persian control. And this revolt is what would lead to a lot of, that conflict between the Persians and the Greeks, all right, or Grecia. So let's read a little bit of this. It says Ionian revolt, and it's important to know the history. And really, it's good to know, but you really only need to know as enough to understand, the verses of the scriptures, because history in itself is very vast. So you can go as deep as you want, but certain points you really only need to go enough to understand whatever scripture you're reading, or whatever breakdown you're going into. But the deeper you go, you might find certain connections, in there that make understanding the context of whether it's the time period or the events that are taking place that are mentioned in the scriptures. It'll give it more picture, right? So it says here the Ionian revolt and associated revolts in Aeolus, Doris, Cyprus, and Caria were military rebellions by several Greek regions of Asia Minor against Persian rule, which is modern day Turkey. Um, it says lasting from 499 BC to 493 BC. At the heart of the rebellion was the dissatisfaction of the Greek cities of Asia Minor with the tyrants appointed by Persia to rule them, which the tyrants were like today you have governors, that are said to be over certain portions of the land or the province. So you sort of had that system going on back then. And at that time, the Greeks weren't united, so to speak. They were city states, okay? And it wasn't until the time of Philip and Alexander that they started to come together, and then start to take over and spread their domain. So it says here, along with the individual actions of two Malaysian tyrants, Histiaeus and Aristogoras, the cities, and that's an important name. Okay, remember that because he was pretty much the match that lit that fire. So it says the cities of Ionia had been conquered by Persia around 540 BC, and thereafter were ruled by native tyrants. So they would basically appoint one that was native in the land over the region, nominated by the Persian satrap in Sardis, which I believe Sardis was the capital, one of the capital cities or so at the time, um, if I'm not mistaken. But it says in 499 BC, the tyrant of Miletus, Aristogoras, launched a joint expedition with the Persian satrap Artaphernes to conquer Naxos. In an attempt to bolster his position, he was set up as a tyrant, and he was basically trying to gain that, officialize his position, gain that recognition, and so on and so forth. So it says the mission was a debacle, and sensing his imminent removal as tyrant, Aristogoras chose to incite the whole of Ionia into rebellion against the Persian king Darius the Great. So at the time of the Ionian revolt, we would be at the third king, okay, which is the father of Xerxes, whose name was Darius, okay, Darius the Great. Now let's look up Ionia, or if we even put Ionian revolt and we look at images here, I'm sure they might have some decent looking ones. Okay, this might not be bad, but it's too. Yeah, so these are okay, but some of them are a little small. All right, but pretty much you can see Ionia, you can see Caria, and this is all part of Asia Minor. And you can see Ephesus, and some of these islands, right? I believe around this region was called the Cyclades, and they refer to these as like the Cycladic islands and so on and so forth. All right, so carrying on, it says, um, so when Aristogoras realized that, damn, he done messed up this expedition in fear that he would be removed and as the tyrant, he decided he's going to go down swinging. So basically, he said he's basically going to incite those that were in the region because he was a native, right? So those that were in the region to revolt. And it says in 498 BC, supported by troops from Athens and Eretria, the Ionians marched on. So now Athens is all the way across the Aegean, right? And Eritrea as well. Um, I wish they'd give me a better map. Okay, this is good. This is good. There you go. Right. So you have the Cyclades here, and then you have Eritrea and Athens. Okay, and so these two cities basically came over to help with the revolt, as we're reading. So it goes on to read. It says in 498 BC, supported by troops from Athens and Eritrea, the Ionians marched on, captured, and burned Sardis. However, on their return journey to Ionia, they were followed by Persian troops and decisively beaten at the Battle of Ephesus. This campaign was the only offensive action by the Ionians, who subsequently went on the defensive. The Persians responded in 497 BC with a three-pronged attack aimed at recapturing the outlying areas of the rebellion, but the spread of the revolt to Caria meant that the largest army under uh, Dalrisus relocated there. While initially campaigning successfully in Caria, this army was annihilated in an ambush at the Battle of Pedasus. This battle had started a stalemate for the rest of 496 to 495 BC. So at this point, you have the rebellion going on. They've gotten help from Eritrea and Athens, which are all the way across the Aegean, and the Persians are pretty much now fighting back and trying to put down these revolts. And then it speaks a bit more about about the revolt. And let's read down here, just getting to the point. It says the Ionian Revolt constituted the first major conflict between Greece and the Persian Empire, and as such represents the first phase of the Greco-Persian Wars. Although Asia Minor had been brought back into the Persian fold, Darius vowed to punish Athens and Eritrea for their support of the revolt. Moreover, seeing that the myriad cities of Greece posed a continued threat to the stability of his empire, according to Herodotus, Darius decided to conquer the whole of Greece. In 492 BC, the first Persian invasion of Greece, the next phase of the Greco-Persian Wars, began as a direct consequence of the Ionian Revolt. So you had this Ionian Revolt that triggered or led to the first Persian invasion of Greece, which was under the reign of Darius the Great, father of Xerxes. So let's read a little bit about the first Persian invasion of Greece. It says the first Persian invasion of Greece during the Greco-Persian Wars began in 492 BC and ended with the decisive Athenian victory at the Battle of Marathon in 490 BC. The invasion, consisting of two distinct campaigns, was ordered by the Persian king Darius the Great, primarily in order to punish the city-states of Athens and Eretria. These cities had supported the cities of Ionia during their revolt against Persian rule, thus incurring the wrath of Darius. Darius also saw the opportunity to extend his empire into Europe and to secure its western frontier. So after the revolt, Darius being upset, that Athens and Eritrea had come to join in and help with the revolt. After he put down the revolt, he basically said, out of that anger, he's going to come and he's going to punish Athens and Eritrea for that, as well as establish his dominance in Greece. So it says the first campaign in 492 BC was led by Mardonius, resubjugated Thrace, and forced Macedon to become a fully subordinate client kingdom, part of Persia. So once again, part of the expansion of the Persian Empire. It says after being a vassal to Persia as early as the late 6th century BC, probably 512 BC. However, the further progress was prevented when Mardonius's fleet was wrecked in a storm off the coast of Mount Athos. The following year, having demonstrated his intentions, Darius sent ambassadors to all parts of Greece, demanding their submission. So he pretty much said, "Look, I flexed. I showed you what I'm here to do. So now, before I continue this, just submit to me." You know, it says, demanding their submission. He received it from almost all of them except Athens and Sparta, both of whom executed the ambassadors, with Athens still now. This could have been where you have I'm not exactly sure on it, but this could have been where you have that scene in the movie 300, where you had the messengers, because keep in mind that they base these movies on part of historical events, right? The movie 300 was based on the Battle of Thermopylae, which means the Battle of the Hot Gates, but not everything was 100% down to the T, right? But anyway, in the scene in the movie, you have that scene where the messengers come and they I believe it was Leonidas, King Leonidas. They came to Sparta. They told him, "Hey, this is what the message from the king. This is what he demands." And then what happened? Leonidas ended up kicking him down a well, right, and pretty much put him to death, right? And the guy was like, he was kind of like shocked, right? Because it's like, yo, you attacking the messenger of the king, like this is war. Okay, now I mean, I don't know if that scene was based on this right here, where Darius sent ambassadors, to go and receive the submission, for lack of a better word, of these Greek city states or not. But it's just it's interesting. All right, but there's an account in the history that Athens and Sparta were both a part of the city states that refused to submit to the Persians, and they ended up executing the ambassadors that were sent. So it says, with Athens still defiant and Sparta now effectively at war with him, Darius ordered a further military campaign for the following year. So now he's pissed off. He said, "Oh, okay. If this is this is the route you want to take, I see you choosing the hard way." All right. So it says the second Persian campaign in 490 BC was under the command of Datis and Artaphernes. The expedition headed first to the island Naxos. All right, which let's take a look here. Where are you? Where are you? Where are you? Da, 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 da. I might have to look it up. I wanted to see. I thought it would pop up right away, um, but it did not. Let's see, Naxos Islands map. I know it's somewhere. Yeah, there we go. So maybe let's go islands history map. It would give us a nice world map. Okay, this is kind of small, but at least it gives you the idea of where these islands were. Okay, so they're off the coast of Greece, and that was like Crete right there. So if we take a look, that would have to be right around this area. All right, so carrying on, right? It says here, so they first headed to the island Naxos, which it captured and burned. It then island hopped between the rest of the Cycladic Islands, which are those islands you see right here. Okay. Um, Moving on, it says annexing each one into the Persian Empire. So this is a part of the expansion of the Persian Empire. Reaching Greece, the expedition landed at Eritrea, which it besieged and after a brief time captured. Eritrea was razed, meaning destroyed, and its citizens enslaved. Finally, the task force headed to Attica, landing at Marathon en route for Athens. So if we take a look back at the map, this is Eritrea, okay, and one of the cities that came and basically had a hand in the Ionian revolt. And so in the second campaign of the first Persian invasion of Greece, they came here and they took it. They basically destroyed it and enslaved the citizens. And on their way to Athens, they said Marathon. It could have been through here. It could have been through here. Um, but let's see what happened. So it says here, en route for Athens, there it was met by a smaller Athenian army, which nevertheless proceeded to win a remarkable victory at the Battle of Marathon. So the Athenians actually ended up defeating this Persian army that was sent to come and teach them a lesson. It says this defeat prevented the successful conclusion of the campaign, and the task force returned to Asia. Nevertheless, the expedition had fulfilled most of its aims, pushing Naxos and Eritrea and bringing much of the Aegean under Persian rule, as well as the full inclusion of Macedon. The unfinished business from this campaign led Darius to prepare for a much larger invasion of Greece, to firmly subjugate it, and to punish Athens and Sparta. However, internal strife within the empire delayed his expedition, and Darius then died of old age. It was thus left to his son Xerxes to lead the second Persian invasion of Greece beginning in 480 BC. So which we'll read a little bit about it, but when you go into Daniel 11 and 2, it tells you that what? It tells you who the three kings are that would stand up, or it tells you that there would be three kings, which we went through being Cambyses II, Bardia, and then Darius, right? Darius the Great. Now, he was the one under whose reign there was the Ionian revolt, which then led to this first Persian invasion of Greece. And he was going to have a second invasion, but he ended up dying. And so that second Persian invasion was then left up to his son, Xerxes, which is the fourth king that was far greater or far richer than they all, right? And as it says here, and by his strength through his riches, he shall stir up all against the realm of Grecia. So going into the history, the secular history as to why was it that he stirred up all against the realm of Grecia, right? What was the cause of that? Did he just get up one day and just say, I want to do this for fun? So it says the second Persian invasion of Greece, 480 to 479, occurred during the Greco-Persian Wars, as King Xerxes I of Persia sought to conquer all of Greece. The invasion was a direct, if right, so he sought to conquer all of Greece, right? So he had to have planned this with a large army, with a good amount of his forces, right? As it says, against the realm of Grecia, which as the apostle went into, it was you had different people living there. You had Jakes that were a part of the Greek armies, but you also had possible that you had Japhites, okay, and Edomites, okay. So as it says here, the invasion was a direct, if delayed, response to the defeat of the first Persian invasion of Greece at the Battle of Marathon, which ended Darius I, which was the father of Xerxes, Darius I's attempts to subjugate Greece. After Darius's death, his son Xerxes spent several years planning for the second invasion, mustering an enormous army and navy. Right? It says he shall what? Stir up. Where is it? And shall stir up all against the realm of Grecia. So it says here, mustering an enormous army and navy, the Athenians and Spartans led the Greek resistance. About a tenth of the Greek city-states joined the Allied effort. Most remained neutral or submitted to Xerxes. Once again, this is the same Xerxes that you read of in the book of Esther, known as Ahasuerus, right, in the book of Esther. So it says the invasion began in spring 480 BC when the Persian army crossed the Hellespont and marched through Thrace and Macedon to Thessaly. Now, I believe the Hellespont is, it doesn't show on here, but it's somewhere that connects from Asia Minor into maybe a part of you know northward, and then you can go from there westward into Macedon and Thrace and all that. Let's look that up. Hellespont or Hellespont map. Let's take a look at the images. Okay. Okay, here's one, but it's not too clear. So let's try to get one that's a bit clearer. All right. Yeah. So let me see. Okay, here you go. So if you can take a look here, you see this is Asia Minor right here, and you can see there's this region. I believe it's through here. All right, I believe this is the Hellespont region that they were able. You can cross through here into into Europe, Greece, so on and so forth. This is also another map. Yeah, as you can see. Okay, so another one pointed somewhere here. All right, so it's either here or here. I'm trying to get a good diagram or a good map of it. Okay, all right. All right, so yeah, it looks like it's actually over here, right at the edge, the northwest edge of Asia Minor. Okay, which it doesn't really show on this map here, but yeah. In any case, it's an area you can cross from Asia Minor up into this other piece of land, and then come make your way down to Athens and Etruria and or Eritrea and so on and so forth. So as it says, we're gonna wrap it up soon. Just want to finish this little portion right here. So as it says here, the Persian advance. Oh, here's also another map. Here you go. So this is the Hellespont from Asia Minor, crossed up in here, through Thrace and Macedon, and then coming down south. So it says the Persian advance was blocked at the pass of Thermopylae by a small allied force under King Leonidas I of Sparta. Simultaneously, the Persian fleet was blocked by an allied fleet at the Straits of Artemisium, and this is the Thermopylae. The Battle of Thermopylae is what the movie 300 is basically based on, and that's why you hear the characters Leonidas, and you hear about Xerxes, and you hear about the Persians and the Greeks and all of that, because historically that's what it was based on. So it says at the famous Battle of Thermopylae, the Allied army held back the Persian army for 3 days before they were outflanked by a mountain path, and the Allied rearguard was trapped and annihilated. The Allied fleet also withstood 2 days of Persian attacks at the Battle of Artemisium, but when news reached them of the disaster at Thermopylae, they withdrew to Salamis. Now, as you keep on reading down, I believe that the Persians weren't successful, okay, with this invasion. As you read on down, it says after Thermopylae, all of Euboea, Phocis, Boeotia, and Attica fell to the Persian army, which captured and burnt Athens. However, a larger allied army fortified the narrow isthmus of Corinth, protecting the Peloponnesus from Persian conquest. Both sides thus sought a naval victory that might decisively alter the course of the war. The Athenian general Themistocles succeeded in luring the Persian navy into the narrow straits of Salamis, where the huge number of Persian ships became disorganized and were soundly beaten by the Allied fleet. The Allied victory at Salamis prevented a quick conclusion to the invasion, and fearing becoming trapped in Europe, Xerxes retreated to Asia, leaving his general Mardonius to finish the conquest with the elite of the army, which, when you read on down, that wasn't successful either. So it says the following spring, the Allies assembled the largest ever hoplite army and marched north from the isthmus, or isthmus, to confront Mardonius. At the ensuing battle of Plataea, the Greek infantry again proved its superiority, inflicting a severe defeat on the Persians and killing Mardonius in the process. Now keep in mind, this is not when the Greeks took over. This was just them defending themselves against the Persians when the Persians invaded. It wasn't going to be until about 100 and maybe some change years after that the Lord raised up Philip and then his son Alexander the Greek to go and start really unite Greece and then go conquering and take over the Persians. All right, so this is about some 100 years before that. So it says here, inflicting a severe defeat on the Persians and killing Mardonius in the process. On the same day, across the Aegean Sea, an allied navy destroyed the remnants of the Persian navy at the Battle of Mycale. With this double defeat, the invasion was ended, the Persian power in the Aegean severely dented. The Greeks would now move to the offensive, eventually expelling the Persians from Europe, the Aegean islands, and Ionia before the war finally came to an end in 479 BC. So now you understand that there was that friction, and there's a history between the Greeks and the Persians. And when you actually go now to the book of Daniel, the eighth chapter, because that Daniel, the eighth chapter, um, deals with the taking over of the kingdom by Alexander, right? Taking over the Persians. And in particular, there's a verse in here that I want to go to. Um, yeah, here it is. Daniel 8 and 6. It says, and he came to the ram, so that he is the he goat, came to the ram which had two horns, and the ram represented the Medo-Persian Empire. Really, at this time, the Achaemenid Empire. So it says, which I had seen standing before the river, and ran into him or ran onto him in the fury of his power. So this is when Alexander, leading the Greeks, were taking over and basically conquering and defeating the Persians. But verse 7, it says, and I saw him come close onto the ram, and he was moved with choler against him, and smote the ram and brake his two horns. And there was no power in the ram to stand before him, but he cast him down to the ground and stamped upon him, and there was none that could deliver the ram out of his hand. Now, when you look up the word choler, all right, I believe it goes into bitterness. You have the word marar. As you can see, it says to be bitter, to show bitterness, to be enraged. Now, of course, when the Greeks were taken over, led by Alexander, the Lord had that spirit, that warlike spirit against him, and he was going against his enemies, taking him over. But also keep in mind that the Greeks were aware of the history that they had with the Persians, because it was only about 100 and somewhat years ago that the Persians invaded Greece, and they destroyed uh, um, Eritrea, and they basically came in there and did all those different things. So they still had remembrance of that history that they had with the Persians. Okay, and now with the Lord putting the spirit on them to go and take them over, they didn't have any feeling of mercy. All right, it was a complete takeover, which ultimately, I believe, let me get this last precept. Daniel chapter 4, is it 4 and 17? There we go. Daniel 4 and 17, it says, this matter is by the decree of the watchers, and the demand by the word of the holy ones, to the intent that the living may know that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men, and giveth it to whomsoever he will, and setteth up over the bases of men. This is a good one. It's not the exact one I was looking for. I think the one I was looking for was dealing with the Most High sets up one and takes one down, but in essence, it echoes the same sentiment, right? So at this point, the Most High said it's time to take down the Persians and to raise up the Greeks in their stead, dealing with the dream that Nebuchadnezzar had of the statue, which represented the different empires, the world empires that would rule. Okay, all the way coming coming down to this time period that we're in right now. Okay. So anyway, that was pretty much it on that. Like I said, I've linked the elders video, this stream, in the description box, so you can access it there and watch it. It's good information. But I just wanted to get a bit of history on that, the Ionian revolt, all right, that led up to the first and second Persian invasion of Greece. Okay, because once again, when you deal with Daniel 11, you may read one verse to another, but in between verses is like 100 and somewhat years worth of history in there. And that's a part of why the breakdown for Daniel 11 can be so difficult, because there's so much external information. This guy, his wife, his daughter, his son, his father, his, he came from here, and so on and so forth. All right. But at the end of the day, to sum it up, it's dealing with the six Syrian wars, and really it's history. Okay. Anyway, with that, I'm going to end it here. Lord willing, that was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Racha Kodash. And until next time, Shalom.